Good morning. It's good to be here this morning. Good to see the house well filled. Empathy is heart. I thought there could be different titles for the message, but I came up with empathy is heart because it takes heart to have empathy. You can help somebody out of duty, but to truly care from someone from the heart is empathy. Working out God's plan in feeling and caring for others. I guess one way to explain it would be a nurse could care for a child, but a mother's love comes from the heart. The purpose to show how empathy can be worked out in various ways to bond us closer together. You know, about 3.5 years ago, Candace was born. She was only a few weeks old, and my mother-in-law was here helping, and she had our children out. They had tickets for a school fundraiser, chicken tickets they were supposed to be selling, and she, strange roads, pulled out in front of somebody and wrecked our van, and it was totaled. And on the way to the hospital, my wife was at home with the children. Were all in the van, but then we got the children to home. My mother-in-law was taken to the hospital in an ambulance, and I was on my way to the hospital, and I thought, okay, the van is gone. First we have to get mother-in-law taken care of, but what about school tomorrow? What about a van? And a dear friend and former coworker, I don't remember the details how he knew that our van was totaled, and I think he called me, and I was on the way to the hospital, and he said, hey, I'm on my way over to my in-laws to pick up a van for you. Don't worry about anything. I'll have it at your house waiting for you, and you can drive it until you find another one. And the weight came off my shoulders because I knew, okay, that is now taken care of. Now I just focus on the family. And I think when that happened, I remember thinking, wow, he is going out of his way. It was late in the day. He wanted to get home to his family, I'm sure, and get them taken care of. But he went out of his way, got the van, took it to our house. And when I got home from the hospital later that evening, I pulled into the driveway, and there was the van at our house. Another example would be just this past week, I was out of town for most of the week, and we had bad weather, sick children, and Joel's already go out of their way in helping us with the commute to school. And the one day, my wife said, hey, I'm not going to be on the road today. They're bringing Lydia all the way home. We bear each other's burdens. We help each other out. And in order to do that, and not just do it out of duty, we have to, if it comes from the heart, it's more meaningful. And it's not just more meaningful for the person on the receiving end, it's more meaningful for us as the giver. So, empathy is climbing down into the hole with someone and saying, I'm here to help you in this darkness. Sympathy is looking down from the top of the hole and saying, oh, that's terrible. I feel bad for you. Empathy is more than feeling bad for someone who is going through a hard time, and more than feeling glad for someone who has had success. Empathy is allowing yourself to feel the same emotions that another person feels, considering the perspective of that individual, so as to experience their pain or joy. Empathy is almost more of a skill that needs to develop. It allows us to have a unique understanding of what the other person is experiencing. It helps us find a better way to offer comfort and support. Having empathy is one way to obey God's command to love one another. In seeking to understand others, we gain insight into how best to show them love. So, how can I cultivate empathy in my life? The first way is to be aware of the needs of others. Take time to think of others. Put it into action. I should, or I might help, isn't going to cut it. And don't just think of yourself. So, back to the story. This fella could have thought, okay, what did he have his mother-in-law doing out driving on strange roads? Why, I mean, they had enough of other things going. Why are they out selling tickets or whatever? He could have come up with excuses, but he didn't. Maybe he was tempted, but he still went out of his way in the evening and helped us. He went into action. I think of, for myself, sometimes, don't just think of others. I sometimes get so caught up in a conversation. This is something I've actually been working on, and I think it really hit me a few weeks ago. We were together with Patrick's, and the evening, as it went on, I was telling Patrick all about my week and about work, and we were so excited, and we had this going and that going, and I didn't give Patrick much time to talk, and we left. And sometime later that evening or the next morning, I found out Patrick had, I don't remember what it was anymore, but something pretty major going on that week, and he never. And I actually texted him and I said, hey, I am sorry. And he said, oh, that's fine. I was enjoying listening to you. That may be true. But as I engage in conversations with different people, and I take time to ask questions, and you truly care about the person, and you as you ask questions and you go into the conversation with the person and go deeper in the conversation. Thank you, Chad. That's probably a good idea. You go into the conversation is way more fulfilled. It's more fulfilling for you. And then if that person maybe at some point in time runs into trouble, you know better how to help them. A scripture that we could turn to would be Luke 10, verse 30 to 36. Luke 10, verse 30. And Jesus answering said, a certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves, which stripped him of his raiment and wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. And by chance there came down a certain priest that way, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. And likewise a Levite, when he was at the place, came and looked on him, and passed by on the other side. Verse 33, but a certain Samaritan, when he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion on him, and went to him and bound his wounds, pouring in oil and wine, and set him on his own beast, and brought him to an inn, and took care of him. And on the morrow, when he departed, he took out 2 pence, and gave them to the host, and said unto him, take care of him, and whatsoever thou spendest more, when I come again, I will repay thee. Which now of these 3 thinkest thou was neighbor unto him that fell among thieves? So sometimes when I read different scriptures, I have to let my imagination go a little bit. I have to think, what went down here? Were they scared of getting involved with whatever? They didn't know what happened to him. Was this robber still hiding in the rocks there, or what was going on? Did they just simply think that, well, I have church duties, The priest maybe thought, I have to get a message together for Sunday. I got all these things that are good things, so he just didn't have time. He had to go on with whatever his life had going. And the Levite also, he would have been from a holy family. He was responsible for helping in the temple. And maybe as he was passing by on the other side, he thought, okay, I have to get all the candles ready. I have to get the floors mopped. I have to be ready for the next service. I hope somebody comes along and cares about this guy, but I don't have time. And I think that is me too often. The Samaritan saw the need, took action, and thought of the future needs that he was committed and wasn't thinking of himself. For myself, as I think about myself and the way I live life, I think it's way too self-centered at times, way too often, and then I come up with excuses and make excuses as to why I'm not helping this person or that person or whatever. And the second point, that goes into the second point. How do I cultivate empathy? Don't be critical. This is where this message probably took root. Scott had given me a book, and I was reading it Thanksgiving Day, and there was a phrase in there that stood out, and it hit me so hard. And this is it. It says, "How often do people who fail wear the tread marks of fellow pilgrims? Those who walk in his steps will never walk over people." And it may not necessarily be people that fail. And especially, I think this was working. I think the Lord was working in my heart in this already. But as I read this and in that chapter, and it began to really take root, and I was like, okay, this is the message. So for what it's worth, this morning, this message is to me. You guys can just listen in and realize what's been going on here for myself. Absolutely not pointing fingers at anyone here in the room this morning except myself. Because I think even there's people that didn't necessarily fail, but maybe they just don't do things how I think they should or how I like it to be. And then we have a way of letting them know this. 2 Samuel chapter 16, verse 5 through 8, I'll just read that. It says, "And King David came to Bahurim. Behold, thence came out a man of the family of the house of Saul, whose name was Shimei, the son of Gera. He came forth and cursed still as he came, and he cast stones at David, and all the servants of King David, and all the people, and all the mighty men were on his right and on his left. And thus said Shimei when he cursed, Come out, thou bloody man. Come out, thou man of Belial. The Lord hath returned upon thee all the blood of the house of Saul, in whose stead thou hast reigned. And the Lord hath delivered the kingdom into the hand of Absalom thy son. And behold, thou art in thy mischief, because thou art a bloody man." So, once again, what's happening here is Absalom had come in to Jerusalem, and he kicked David out of his own house. And David is fleeing for his life. He's probably at the lowest point ever in his life. And here comes this Shimei. Shimei comes out, and he's throwing stones and dust at David. And he obviously was upset because David had taken Saul's place as king. He wasn't a Philistine. He was a Benjaminite. He was a fellow Jew. And he, as a fellow Jew, he should have been there to help David. And for me, I may not throw stones, I may not throw dust, but I can come up with really creative ways to get my opinion across. When we were at my parents' this Christmas, I told a story that I don't think they ever knew, and I'm getting old enough that I can say it was about 30 years ago. I remember when my dad would say, this story or that story happened 30 years ago. I thought, what a dinosaur. But I'm there, and it was about 30 years ago. The church we went to, we didn't sit in the service like this. We had Sunday school, and then we went on to children's church, they called it. And there were these 3 poor girls that came, and their grandparents brought them. To my knowledge, both of their parents were in prison, and these girls were poor. One girl had her glasses framed, held together with silly putty, and another one had duct tape here. And for whatever reason, me and my friends decided they are not welcome here. And we picked on them embarrassingly bad. And when the teacher would leave the room, I mean, it would be an all-out brawl. And I remember one Sunday, the teacher came back in, and one of the boys, I mean, they were piled on top of each other. They were going at it. And he kind of rolled over, and it's her. And the teacher took that girl by the ear and dragged her out of the class. And we never saw those girls again. And today, sometimes it still haunts me. I wonder whatever happened. Their grandparents brought them to church. They had obviously a terrible home life. No parents, probably in prison. And we had no empathy whatsoever. Now, we were children, I understand that. But today, now as an adult, I may not kick and scratch and yell and whatever else. But in what ways do I throw stones, dust, or kick and scratch? I actually, in studying for this message, probably 3-4 weeks ago, and this is just a confession for what it's worth, I thought of about 6 years ago, I was sitting in church, and for whatever reason, I don't remember, but I got in the way back, and there was a bunch of boys sitting in front of me, and they were acting up a little bit. And I, ever piously, wrote a note. And I don't remember what the note said, but I dropped it over the bench. And I know the fellow that I dropped it to, he was in his upper teens, but he didn't have a great home life. I think his mom went to one church, and his dad went to a different church, and he had some things he was dealing with. He didn't need me to make it worse. He needed me to care about him. And and I didn't. But I went to his place of business and tried to hunt him down to apologize, and he wasn't there, so I gave him a phone call. And he said, yeah, I remember that. And he told me that it dug pretty deep, but he forgave me. And after that, I felt so much better. But, in different ways we do that, and maybe we do fail, but I know that God forgives us, and we can move on. I had to think of Apollos. He needed the way explained to him more perfectly, and Aquila and Priscilla did not put tread marks on him. They did just that, and Paul refers to him in 1 Corinthians, I believe it is, as a waterer of the word, or a helper. We don't know where our care for others may take them someday. If Aquila and Priscilla would have been hard on Apollos, maybe he never would have turned into the man he was. So, number 3, how do I cultivate empathy? Bearing one another's burdens. We should help others in ways that we would like to be helped. When we don't know what to do, we should consider what we would need from someone when experiencing a similar situation. I was talking with somebody about this as it was going through my mind. Sometimes it's how it works. I got something going through my head, and as I go about my days, I all of a sudden I end up talking, hey, here's what I'm thinking about. And this fella said, oh, okay, I see how it is. You're just saying we feel bad for everybody and we give everybody a free pass, and we'll never deal with sin, we'll never take care of anything because we just put ourselves in their shoes and have empathy and pity for them. I would actually say quite the contrary. In Galatians chapter 6, verse 2 through 5, it says, "Bear ye one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. For if a man think himself to be something when he is nothing, he deceiveth himself." Verse 4, "But let every man prove his own work, and then shall he have rejoicing in himself alone, and not in another. For every man shall bear his own burden." So when we read this, you wonder a little bit, okay, first it says, bear you one another's burdens. Then it says, let every man bear his own burden. But verse 1 is talking about a man that is caught in a sin, or maybe not caught, but he has been found in sin. And a person that is struggling, we are there to bear their load. The second, let every man bear his own burden, actually would be translated also as load. It would seem like that's your daily load of life. Sometimes you see someone that gets so bogged down spiritually with a fault or a sin, they can't even function and do their daily routine properly. And if we're there to help them bear the burden spiritually, it's being accountable to each other. It's helping each other out. Albert Barnes says, "The sense is that every man has special temptations and easily besetting sins, which constitute a heavy burden. We should aid each other in regard to these and help one another to overcome them." It's actually the harder and more complex action, I would say. As we go through life as brothers and sisters in church, in life, and we have our accountability partners. I make myself accountable to my accountability partner. He is there helping me bear my burden. Here's something I'm dealing with, I'm struggling with. I can't handle it. He prays for me. We're bearing each other's burdens. He's open with me and tells me his weaknesses. I believe that's what it's talking about here. Bearing one another's burdens. In John chapter 13, verse 34 and 35, the former verses I read said, "In so doing, we will fulfill the law of Christ." John 13, 34 and 35 says, "A new commandment I give to you, that ye love one another as I have loved you, that ye also love one another. By this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if ye have love one for another." Galatians 13 to 15 says, "For ye were called to freedom, brothers. Only do not use your freedom as an opportunity for the flesh, but through love serve one another. For the whole law is fulfilled in one word, that ye shall love your neighbor as yourself." So, an example, and this is very close to me. It is a turning point in my life. I was middle to upper teens, and I had a besetting sin. And I could not overcome this. It went on, and finally there was one day where I was at the end of myself, and I knew I had no choice but to get some help, and I went to my dad. He was sitting at his desk. I walked into the office. His back was toward me. And I remember the empty pit feeling of, what's Dad going to do? What's he going to say? How upset will he be? How disappointed will he be? What? Yeah. And I just said, Dad, I need to talk to you. And I told Dad what's going on. I confessed it to him. And he stood up, he turned around, and he took one hand behind my head, pulled my head into his, and put his other hand on my shoulder. And he began to just pray for me. And he wept. And after that, it's not that I never failed again, but now my dad was bearing my burden with me. And he did it with such empathy, such love, that when I walked out of there, I remember thinking, I didn't even know this was possible. And then going back to bearing my own load, my daily work was easier because I knew that Dad was there for me. And he didn't harp on me. He didn't just occasionally he'd say, hey, how are you doing? He was bearing my burden. John Wesley has written in his journal that he met a serious man who said to him, Sir, you wish to serve God and go to heaven? Remember, you cannot serve him alone. You must therefore find companions or make them. The Bible knows nothing of solitary religion. And it says John Wesley never forgot that. You know, we are here as a body. We work together. We bear each other's loads. We do it out of true care for each other with a heart. We do it with heart. I remember a man was in church. He was struggling with some things, and they were not maybe showing much empathy. And another man came to him and said, we're all on a ladder, and you are down here on this ladder, and he said, we're all looking down saying, hey, get up here. And he said, you're down there looking up saying, I would, but you're standing on my fingers. And I think about that often. I just think, I sometimes whenever I'm hard on somebody, I'll say, come on, just get with it or whatever. But then I think, ooh, am I actually standing on his fingers? So, number 4, cultivating empathy is sometimes rejoicing with others. You know, it's not always just the tough stuff. Sometimes it's rejoicing. 1 Corinthians 12, verse 26 says, and whether one member suffer, all members suffer with it. Or one member be honored, all members rejoice with it. Romans 12:15 says, rejoice with them that do rejoice, and weep with them that weep. I thought the other week when Jordan in share time said that Javon gave his heart to the Lord, we rejoiced with them. And I think every time, I'm not sure what it is with, and I think it's probably just, it goes with life in church. But every time I hear of another soul giving their heart to the Lord, it just thrills me. And then, you know, you think about the prodigal son. When he came back, his brother he did not rejoice with his father. He was cold, jealous, and heartless. And I think sometimes we do that. I don't know what it is. There's something in us that maybe a little more contrary. We like to throw water on the fire. And I catch myself doing that at times. Luke 6:31 says, as you would that men would do to you, do to them also likewise. Number 5, what if I just think I can't? I think this is one thing I deal with as I go through I go through and I'm trying to weigh out, or maybe sometimes I gotta see the end before I even start, because if the outcome isn't gonna, I probably won't even bother starting. But realizing what God has done for you, the more we realize our desperate need for God's mercy, the more we will understand the power of showing mercy to others. Recognizing our need for God's compassion moves us to act with compassion towards others. And then I added a fourth one, says, know that God takes us through hard times and gives us experience to better help someone else. I think that helps us to keep from getting bitter as we go through experiences in life, realizing that God took it through for a reason. My brother next older than me, they lost a child shortly after birth, and we never experienced that. But I can tell when we were there just recently, they were talking of somebody else that had lost a baby, and I could see they had a way deeper emotion for that person than I did. It's because they experienced it. They're not bitter about it. They're using what they went through to help somebody else. And I think we need to utilize our experiences, not just look at as it was a terrible thing and I'm upset and life will never be the same again. Now I know how to better sympathize or show empathy, put myself into somebody else's shoes that goes through a hard time. Hebrews 4:15 says, "For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin." Matthew 8:17 says, "Himself took our infirmities and bare our sicknesses." 1 Peter 3:18, For Christ also hath once suffered for sins, the just for the unjust, that he might bring us to God, being put to death in the flesh, but quickened by the Spirit. God sent his own Son, Jesus, to earth as a human being in order to fully experience what we do. Jesus suffered great hurt and pain. Therefore, we cannot say that God does not understand or feel our hurts and pains. His heart breaks when our heart breaks. God created the full range of human emotions, and Jesus has experienced the full range of human emotions. He understands our weaknesses, our fears, and our joys. Even more than that, his empathy for us moved him to create a way to experience eternal joy, free from all pain and suffering. So, in closing, what did we look at today? Number one, be aware of the needs of brothers and sisters. Don't be so caught up with what is important that you pass by your opportunities. Feel for and help others. 2, don't be harsh on the hurting or those in need of help. Care for those in need by investing yourself into their lives and being of help in whatever way it might be. 3, bear one another's burdens, pray for them, intercede on their behalf. Show them the love and comfort of Christ. 4, rejoice with those that rejoice. 5, look at God and what he has done for me and live by his example. 2 Corinthians 1, verse 3 and 4 says, "Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies, the God of all comfort, who comforts us in our affliction, so that we may be able to comfort those who are in any affliction with the comfort with which we ourselves are comforted by God." The more we experience the empathy of God, the source of all mercy and comfort, the more we will be equipped to show empathy to others. As I look down over this list, I think I can say each one just to myself, as I apply it. I don't think this is, I was a little nervous. I told Patrick that sometimes I shoot from the hip whenever I speak up front or whatever, or I do a devotional. It's almost easier if I just know like 3 days ahead of time, because till it comes, I'm almost on to another thing. But this, I realized this week when church was canceled last week, this has now been, I would say, very real, that I've been thinking deeply about it for 2 months, 2.5 months. This is not something that applies here and we kind of take care of it and then we move on to the next thing. I think this is daily. As I go through each day, I'm just like, ooh, you can almost see people. This person has tread marks. This person needs help. I was at the Marathon gas station in Wakarusa the other day, and this family came in, and I told my wife, I felt it down in the pit of my stomach. The children were they just needed help. You could see it. And the girl she was older, and for some reason she started to talk to me and wondered about the weekend and whatever else, she did have a reason. The folks at work were asking for Red Bull because they had a busy day, so I went in and bought like 10 Red Bull and a couple Monsters, and I'm not sure what all, and so I had like 14 or 15 of these on the counter. She was back at the other thing when I said, what's a good flavor? I don't drink these things, and so she was giving her input. Then she came up to the counter and she was like, what are you doing? But as I left, my mind was racing. I was like, how do I at least show some kind of love? How do I maybe they don't understand what it is to have someone care. And I just said, well, thank you for helping and have a good weekend. And she almost looked confused. And I think this is not a message that runs out. This is something that will probably the rest of life, I have to be aware of it. Anyway, let's bow our heads for prayer. Father in heaven, we come before you this morning. We thank you for showing us by example how to love and care and meet the needs of others. We just ask that you would help us to have a keen sense for the needs of others. I just ask that you would work in our hearts, work in my heart. Forgive us when we fail you. We thank you that we can put our hope and trust in you and that you love us. Just pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Could we have a song?